Coming up next, we have Caio Borralho, one of the hottest Brazilian prospects in the promotion, coming up against Abus Magomedov, who is coming off of a headlining fight against Sean Strickland where it was a brutal loss. Let's just leave it at that. Rick, this might be one of my favorite matchups on the card. Caio, in my opinion, looks like the Walmart version of Paulo Costa, where he's got the neck tat, he's got the glasses, he's got like the build of Paulo Costa, but he just looks like if you're going to go buy a Walmart version, that's what he looks like. However, what I want to say here, and I'll let you kind of elaborate with it, he's on an incredible streak here in the UFC, has not lost at the promotion yet, and has several fights under his belt. I just don't know who he's fought competition-wise, where I've been backing him a lot over the last couple of years now because I think that he's that talented, he's that good. But the competition for me, this is going to be his biggest test to date, where Magomedov was good enough to come into the UFC, get a win, and then immediately get a fight against Sean Strickland to headline a card. And yes, he got absolutely dominated by Sean Strickland in the second round. But in that first round, things looked like pretty good for him, honestly, where there was some really good back and forth in that first round with the now champion, who Israel Adesanya struggled with. We talked about that earlier. Like, Sean Strickland is no joke, and he's been in form now for a while, ever since the end of last year when he felt like he was done a disservice in the fight against Cannonier that like ended the UFC calendar. I think that like he got a really wild version of Strickland, and he handled him well in the first round, but again, like did not handle him well towards the end. Maybe that's more of an MMA math analysis, but interested to hear what your thoughts are.
No, as it pertains to Magomedov, I entirely agree. I think it was a little premature to give him a main event slot in his second fight. But Sean Strickland has shown now, since that Cannonier fight, like you said, where he's made the adjustment. For like a number of fights there in between, he was able just to pitter-patter and play his defense, which made for boring fights visually, but also close decisions. And he sort of made that change where he's like, you know what? I know my weapon is my cardio and my pressure and my defense as well as my boxing. He's like, I'm just going to push forward. I'm just going to keep on my foot on the gas every minute and not allow my opponent to breathe. And it started with Magomedov, and you saw Magomedov, it felt like he almost just wanted to take a breath. And just be like, dude, just give me 1 second. Like, just give me 1 second to like, and he didn't allow him to do that. And by the second round, I mean, he's just exhausted, which cardio shouldn't be that bad. But, I mean, we saw the exact same thing happen with Adesanya, where you're like, why does Adesanya look like he shouldn't even be a ranked fighter here? Like, he couldn't even throw or really, like, fight much back to Strickland because that pressure just does not allow you any ability to implement your own game plan. Borralho is not just going to give you all the time in the world. But we should see a much, much better Magomedov, where the plus 250 odds feel a little harsh here. And that doesn't mean that I'm on Magomedov necessarily, but plus 250 is a bit steep. And like you said, Borralho really has not had a phenomenal level of competition, but he's been a co-main event in 3 of his 4 fights. And we'll see, and he's not the co-main event in this one, but he's still in the main card, and we're going to see if he really has the ability to stand toe-to-toe with Magomedov here, as it'll be interesting. He's beaten Armen Petrosian on the feet before, and he's beaten Mako Olajeszek by rear naked choke as well. So he's beaten other guys that have really, really powerful striking. But Magomedov is no stranger to the ground. He's got a number of submission wins to his name. He's slick there too. But that's where Borralho is the favorite, and that's why he's the favorite, is because of that ground game, because of those takedowns and that submission ability, and the ability just to control fights. 3 of his 4 fights, as I said, have been co-main events. 3 of his 4 fights have also gone to decision because of that nature where he's pretty defensively sound on the ground. He's going to make sure he controls you. He's going to win the round and make sure that he doesn't really take any damage in the process. So it's one of those clean, no risk, I'm going to win the rounds. And I can see him trying to implement that game plan here against Magomedov and trying to tire him out. I'm interested to see what Magomedov has done to improve that cardio, because that cardio was garbage, regardless of what Strickland did. But I think that it can't look that bad again, just because Caio is not Strickland in the way that he pressures. So it's an interesting fight. The odds are weird.
Yeah, I just think the odds should be a little bit tighter. I think that we're getting some really good value and a great spot for Magomedov here. don't get it twisted. I am a Borralho fan. That's why I felt open to teasing him at the beginning of the fight, making fun of him a little bit, because I like him. I think he's a lot of fun to watch. I think he's exciting, and he's going to hopefully be in the UFC for a long time. For me, when the value discrepancy is this big, I'm going to go in on Magomedov. So I'm actually even going for the full unit here. Give me Magomedov plus 250 for the full unit. Rick, what are you going with here?
Yeah, I mean, 90% of the Tapology voters are on Borralho, which doesn't make me feel great. It feels like everyone's just forgotten about Magomedov and his track record and ability. And Magomedov's also been training with wrestlers. So he's clearly trying to improve that side of the game, knowing that Borralho is going to test him there. I think it'll be a really close fight. I think it's going to be a close enough fight. I'm going to go with Borralho to win the fight, but I'm going to take Borralho. This is just a trend of this card. I haven't done this in the past, but Borralho by split or majority decision at plus 700. And I'm going to put a quarter unit on that. I think that this could be a really tight fight across multiple rounds where Borralho might dominate it on the ground or have the top control and do some damage, but not too much. And I think we could have some questionable scorecards here, especially with it being in Brazil. If Abus does a little bit more damage, but Borralho has the control, I might score at Magomedov. Judges might score at Borralho. I think that we could get in a situation like that. So I've got Borralho in the fight. Andy's got Magomedov. We're split on the pick. It's a close fight, much closer than the odds indicate. And we will see you at somehow on the main card, Rodrigo Nascimento and Dante Almeida.